This is the yellow-eyed penguin, known locally as the hoi-ho, and it's the rarest penguin on the face of the earth, and it's becoming even rarer. So today I've come to the southern tip of New Zealand to try and find one, but also to tell you that all hope is not lost for this cool looking penguin. This is Curio Bay, almost as far south on mainland New Zealand as you can get. It's home to a few interesting things like a petrified forest, trees that look like this, and of course the world's rarest penguin. The yellow-eyed penguin is an endemic bird to New Zealand, meaning you can't find it anywhere else on the planet, and if things carry on the way they are, you won't find it anywhere else, full stop. And that means it's probably going to be really quite hard to see them out here today, but we'll give it a go anyway. Standing at roughly 70 centimeters or just over 2 feet tall, with an average weight of around 5 kilograms, they can live for up to 20 years or more. However, it's thought that there are only 3,000 of these birds left in existence. The species is split into a north and south population, the north being the birds that can be found on the mainland, including Stewart Island. The south being the birds that can be found on islands far off the south coast like the Auckland Islands and Campbell Island. It's hard to determine numbers from the southern collection, but after the most recent survey, it shows that the population is stable with roughly 2,000 birds. However, the same can't be said for the northern collection. Since 1999, the population has plummeted from 741 breeding pairs right down to 233. And while that 20-year trend is really scary, and rightly so it is, within another 20 years, they could be locally extinct from here. And there are a few reasons for their downfall. Introduced predators like stoats are definitely one, but there are measures to try and counter that now with this thing right here. These are predator boxes. It's a tough life being a yellow-eyed penguin. Not only do you have the perils of the ocean to contend with, but there's also introduced predators like stoats that will attack chicks and eat eggs. Climate change affected food supply that results in starvation, accidental bycatch and getting caught in net traps, but also, unfortunately, they are at risk from people walking their dogs. Dogs find the penguins fun to chase and attack, and an irresponsible dog owner could be a death sentence to one. And while I can't actually see any irresponsible dog owners today, that doesn't mean there aren't any that come here. All it takes is one to wreak absolute havoc on this area. And this is an area with significant interest that gets a decent amount of tourists for a variety of reasons. It hosts the world's rarest penguin, the world's smallest dolphin, and you can even see the once near extinct southern right whales here too. But also there is a significant interest because of this petrified forest. It's a really rare example of a fossilized forest from its time, and it stretches out from here at Curio Bay all the way to Slope Point, which has these funky trees. More on those in a minute though. This petrified forest is estimated to be 180 million years old, which makes it quite a bit older than grass. Back then, this area would have been semi-tropical and jungle-like, but eventually it was buried by huge floods of volcanic ash that would turn the wood to stone. Millions of years go by and the sea starts to almost excavate the forest, and now today, this is what we can see of that time 180 million years ago. Remnants of trees that were toppled by severe floods now being battered by the strong waves, used as a feeding spot for some oyster catchers. Further down the coast to Slope Point, where this petrified forest extends to, you have these funny shaped trees. This is the southernmost tip of New Zealand and is open to the elements that come with it. The trees here were planted by sheep farmers to give their sheep protection from the elements. Because of the vast nothingness between New Zealand and Antarctica, the wind can seemingly cycle round and become more ferocious before eventually battering the southern coast. These trees have taken the full brunt of that, and through their growth have been permanently curved to one side, giving them this strange but interesting look. Back to the penguins though, I mentioned the predator boxes being implemented, and they're placed here to try and eradicate the rats, stoats and weasels that may enter the area. New Zealand is actually trying to become predator free by 2050, and these predator boxes are the front line to trying to achieve that. The overall aim is to help their native and endemic species bounce back. There are quite a few islands around New Zealand that are predator free now. I actually went to one recently in search of some extremely rare wildlife. These islands are crucial to the survival of New Zealand's native wildlife, and it's hoped that one day New Zealand as a country can go back to its roots and be totally introduced predator free. Look, it's a target. That's amazing. While I was in the area and waiting for some penguin action to happen, I encountered two locals who were able to give me more insight into the diminishing population over the years. They didn't want their faces on camera, but here's what they had to say. How long have you lived here?
All my life.
50 years.
What was it like 50, 40 years ago?
I don't know the exact count, but there was big numbers.
And you would come down here and see them regularly?
Yeah.
And what's that like for you guys? Is that quite sad to see?
It is.
Oh yeah. That's why we're closing it off, just try and to look after them, for them to breed up.
How many adults are here?
2 pair.
2 pair, that's it?
Yeah.
Do you think in your lifetime you're going to lose them?
Well, I think that probably will happen.
Yeah, it's not going to take much to lose what we've got.
It's really sad to know that these 2 people have lived in the area their whole lives, knowing that there are yellow-eyed penguins at this bay for that whole time, once in big numbers. But now in the coming years, they probably won't be there anymore and this area will have lost them. But let's head back to Cookie on location to see if there's any penguin action yet. Have you seen any Cooks? No penguins yet. Maybe you should tell them about how this is going to get fixed. So it's not all doom and gloom for the penguins. There are drastic measures to ensure they don't become extinct. But there's one thing that I haven't mentioned about the penguins, which is really their biggest downfall. They're incredibly prone to diphtheria-like infections, which are fatal to chicks between 1 and 28 days old. This is a huge problem because up to 95% of all yellow-eyed penguins will contract these infections and up to 70% of them will die. It's a real population killer, and currently there's no vaccine, and infected chicks suffer the most. The mouth and tongue of these chicks gets covered in a thick membrane, pus and ulcers, which prevents them from eating. This infection can spread to their whole body and eventually lead to sepsis as well. However, in 2021, a study was published that provided some hope. The bacteria of this infection was isolated. Its DNA was sequenced, and with that they discovered that this particular strain was a new species not previously reported. This then gave the scientists the ability to rapidly identify the infection amongst the penguins. This breakthrough is invaluable as it gives the penguin chicks a much better chance at survival. And if that's not exciting enough, the scientists also found something else. A protein that helps the bacteria survive inside the penguin hosts can actually be modified to protect the penguins from bacterial infections. Work is now being carried out to hopefully create a vaccine for the world's rarest penguin that will hopefully pull it back from the jaws of extinction. These penguins could arrive at any time. They could be a few more hours yet, and I suppose we're going to stay here until it gets dark. But makes me wonder, right, how hard their journey in must be. Looking at this sea, it is rough, and it's like crashing over rocks. So 2 penguins we're waiting for, they must have a real hard time here. Look how powerful this ocean is. There's like rocks out there as well. It looks so difficult for them to come into here. And difficult that may be, imagine it with no light. And that is the way things were heading. We'd been waiting for nearly 8 hours and light was going down and we had no sign of penguins until all of a sudden I spotted something battling the waves. World's rarest penguin. Just up there. A solitary hoy-ho could be seen emerging from the pounding waves and making its way up to the beach into a calmer territory after what must have been a tough day at sea. How amazing is that to see? One of the 2 that have been out fishing all day long has just washed up onto the beach. We're waiting for the second one, but this one's having a little wash, getting himself dry so he can go back up to the nest. This time, after a long day, must have felt nice for the penguin. Perhaps the human equivalent would be kicking off your shoes and slumping into your sofa after a long day at work. We were quite far away in this current position to get a good view, so we manoeuvred our way to a better vantage point, and from here, you could really see how beautiful these animals are. The yellow they're named after, and those bright pink feet, they're truly a stunning animal. Once this one had decided enough was enough, and it was time to head up to the nest, it wasn't long after that the second penguin had appeared on the beach. Much closer to us from our vantage point, we could really get some detail, and again, what a glorious animal. It's always a privilege to see wonderful wildlife, and it's not often you can say you've seen the rarest of something, but here we are, watching the world's rarest penguin. A penguin that is in need of rescue before it's too late, and hopefully that 20-year trend can be reversed, and these gorgeous animals can see a big recovery.